Hello students, welcome to the lecture on research design. And after the lecture we will be able to learn the following objectives. Define the concept of research design, describe the descriptive research design, understand experimental research design, explain the exploratory research, define secondary data in research design, explain the qualitative research and design, understand the importance of research design. Let's start with a brief introduction to research design. Research design is referred to as the scheme of work to be done or performed by a researcher during the various stages of a research project. With the help of the research design, one can very easily understand and operate research work, as research design acts as a working plan which is made by a researcher even before he starts working on his research project. By this, researcher gets a great help and guidance in achieving his aims and goals. According to Russell Ackoff, research design is the process of making decisions before a situation arises in which the decision has to be carried out. It is actually a process of deliberate anticipation directed towards bringing an unexpected situation under control. Russell Ackoff has, in a great way, explained about the research design in his book, Designs of Social Research.
In this video, we will introduce the types of business research. Company research is important for understanding the nature of an enterprise's financial and operating conditions. Industry research looks at the larger environment in which an enterprise operates with its competitors. There are many factors that will influence how much information you can find for a particular firm. The type of company, whether public or private, the company's size, whether large or small, company location, and press visibility all play a role in determining the quantity of information available. In general, it is easier to find information on public companies than private firms, as well as for larger, established businesses and firms that are based in the United States. Also, companies that appear frequently in the news media, such as the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, or Business Week, are often easier to find information on. There are three types of companies: public companies, subsidiaries, and private companies. Public companies have the most accessible information. The United States Securities and Exchange Commission mandates that public companies provide financial information every quarter, along with an annual report. The annual report to the Securities and Exchange Commission is commonly known as the 10-K, which includes an overview of the company, executive compensation, audited financial statements, risk factors, and other pertinent information. This is different from the annual report to shareholders, which is a similar document but is provided to shareholders and other parties on an annual basis, along with a more summarized version of the information and a more aesthetically pleasing format. In addition, the annual report to shareholders also includes commentary from company executives, such as the board of directors or CEO. Information is not found in the 10-K. The quarterly reports are also known as a 10-Q and are filed with the Securities and Exchange Commission every 3 months. It is important to note that any document produced by the company itself, such as a 10-K or annual report, is considered a primary document. In contrast, press releases in trade journals or newspaper articles in the New York Times or Wall Street Journal are considered secondary research. Subsidiaries are more challenging to research since the parent of a subsidiary is not required to report information for an individual subsidiary. As a result, subsidiary information is often found only upon careful review of a parent company's disclosures. Similarly, private companies do not sell publicly traded stock. Therefore, they are not required to release information to the government or general public. Information may come from institutional investors, such as venture capital or private equity firms. Sources of information at the company level can include the firm website, the Securities and Exchange Commission portal, commonly known as EDGAR, business databases, as well as newspapers, journals, or trade association publications. Industry information can best be found utilizing business databases as well as trade publications and other news sources.
Let's move to the next topic, which is concept of research design. Research has its special significance in solving various operational and planning problems of business and industry. Research methods versus methodology. Research methods or techniques thus refers to the methods the researchers use in performing research operations. Keeping this in view, research methods can be put into the following three groups. In the first group, we include those methods which are concerned with the collection of data. These methods will be used where the data already available are not sufficient to arrive at the required solution. The second group consists of those statistical techniques which are used for establishing the relationship between the data and the unknown. The third group consists of those methods which are used to evaluate the accuracy of the results obtained. Research methodology. It is a way to systematically solve the research problem. It may be understood as a science of studying how research is done scientifically. It is necessary for the researcher to know not only the research methods or techniques, but also the methodology. Descriptive research. Design. Descriptive designs only describe the phenomenon under study, attempting to establish a relationship between factors. In short, descriptive research can be used for the following purposes: to describe the characteristics of certain groups of interest to the marketer, to estimate the proportion of people in a given population who behave in a certain way, to make specific predictions for specified future periods, to develop inferences whether certain variables are associated. Panel research design. It is also known as longitudinal research. The panel design, it involves the continual or periodic information collection from a fixed panel or a sample of respondents. The elements of these panels may be retail outlets, dealers, consumers, or just individuals. Cross-sectional design. The cross-sectional study is aimed at taking a one-time stock of the situation or the phenomenon in which the decision maker is interested. Focus groups. The focus group, an informal design, basically consists of bringing together a group of people to have an extensive, free-flowing discussion relating to their experiences or opinion. The discussion in the focus group is led and guided by a moderator who has fairly standardized way of establishing a relaxed and congenial atmosphere, initiating the discussion and keeping it on the desired focus. The nature of descriptive research. The descriptive function of research is heavily dependent on instrumentation for measurement and observation. Researchers may work for many years to perfect such instrumentation so that the resulting measurement will be accurate, reliable, and generalizable. Let's explore now experimental research design. The aim of the experimental research is to investigate the possible cause and effect relationship by manipulating one independent variable to influence the other variables in the experimental group, and by controlling the other relevant variables and measuring the effects of the manipulation by some statistical means. The following are some examples to illustrate the experimental research. To investigate the effects of two methods of teaching a 12th grade history program as a function of class size, large and small, and levels of student intelligence. To investigate the effects of a new drug abuse prevention program on the attitudes of junior high school students using experimental and control groups. To investigate the effects of two methods of pupil evaluation on the performance of children in the 23 elementary schools of a given suburban district. Exploratory research. The exploratory research design, as the name suggests, involves getting a feel of the situation and emphasizes a discovery of ideas and possible insights that may help in identifying areas of further rigorous study. Students, do you know about the use of exploratory study? The exploratory studies are mainly used for providing information to enable a more precise problem definition or hypothesis formulation, establishing research priorities, giving the researchers a feel of the problem situation and familiarizing him with the problem, collecting information about possible problems in carrying out research using specific collection tools and specific techniques for analysis. The generally used methods in exploratory research are the survey of existing literature, the survey of the experienced individuals, the analysis of selected case situations, exploratory designs, the survey of existing literature research design. It presents a very economical source of study for the purpose of hypothesis generation and problem definition. A large variety of published and unpublished data is available through books and journals, newspapers and periodicals, government publications, and individual research projects, as well as data collected by trade associations. Survey of experienced individuals. Clue to solving many marketing problems can be had by talking to individuals who have expertise and ideas about the research subject. Analysis of selected cases. This method involves the selection of a few extreme examples reflecting the problem situation and a thorough analysis of the same. In certain cases, this sort of study may help in identifying the possible relationships that exist between the variables in a given marketing problem situation. Let's now discuss about the secondary data. In the fields of epidemiology and public health, the distinction between primary and secondary data depends on the relationship between the person or the research team who collected a data set and the person who is analyzing it. The advantages and disadvantages of secondary data analysis. The first major advantage of working with secondary data is economy because someone else has already collected the data. The researcher does not have to devote resources to this phase of research. Even if the secondary data set must be purchased, the cost is almost certainly lower than the expense of the salaries, transportations, and so on and so forth that would be required to collect and process a similar data set from scratch. There is also a savings of time. Because the data is already collected and frequently also cleaned and stored in electronic format, the researcher can spend the bulk of his or her time analyzing the data. Qualitative research is a system of inquiry which seeks to build a holistic, largely narrative description to inform the researcher's understanding of a social or cultural phenomenon. Qualitative research takes place in natural settings, employing a combination of observations, interviews, and document reviews. Qualitative research processes. Macmillan and Schumacher defined qualitative research as primarily an inductive process of organizing data into categories and identifying patterns or relationships among categories. Common assumptions. Qualitative research as a strategy is predicated on underlying assumptions and perspectives. Wiersma summarized these as phenomena are viewed in its entirety or holistically. It is not possible to reduce complex phenomena into a few interdependent or independent factors. Investigators research in nature. Researchers do not impose the assumptions, the limitations and delimitations or definitions or research designs upon emerging data. The researcher's role is to record what he or she observes and or collects from subjects in the natural environment. Reality exists as the subject sees it. The researcher is to record fully, accurately and unbiased that reality as seen through the eyes of the subjects. Post hoc conclusions emerge from the data. A priori conclusions are avoided. Common reference points. Virtually all qualitative research is done in natural settings. Variables are not manipulated. While there are several qualitative research strategies and subspecialties, they are based on a number of common reference points. Working design. A preliminary plan is drawn but is intended to be flexible. Here the field sites are selected through purposeful sampling given the study's purpose. Working hypothesis. Using an inductive mode of inquiry, qualitative researchers they refrain from positing firm hypotheses or any hypothesis at all. Data collection. The chief data collection devices are observation, interview, artifact that is records and documents, etc., oral histories and specimen records that is behavior recorded through observation. Data analysis and interpretation. Data analysis and collection are iterative. Data must be organized and reduced, data classification and reduction. Data are organized by coding, descriptions of behavior, statements, feelings, thoughts, etc. are identified and then coded. Wiersma identifies three types of codes: setting or context codes. These codes describe the setting or the context descriptors of the phenomenon under study. Given that copious field notes are taken, codes for specific or regularly occurring characteristics contribute to efficient and effective field note production. Perception codes. These codes are used to accurately record subjects' reported perception, understanding, etc. about relevant people, circumstances, or things. Process codes. It is given in qualitative research that naturally occurring systems change. These codes are used to note event or process evolution and factors which cause or contribute to said evolution. Perspectives for designing the qualitative study. Funnel approach. In the working design phase, the researcher has a very general research question or hypothesis which is used to select the initial research site, subjects, data to be collected, etc. Based on the results generated from the earlier initiative, the research question or hypothesis becomes increasingly confused. Modified analytic induction approach. According to Wiersma, in this approach, the researcher starts with a specific research question. It identifies virtually all instances or cases of the phenomenon under investigation, establishing a qualitative study's validity. Internal validity, that is the design integrity of the study, it relies on logical analysis. Interpretive validity is the degree to which data interpretation and conclusions. Usefulness. Usefulness is determined by the extent the report informs and stimulates further research. Contextual completeness. This refers to the fullness and richness of the description, usually in narrative form, of the report. Research positioning. Qualitative researchers have been referred to as data collection devices, given the centrality of the research in qualitative strategies. Thus, the researcher must document his or her or the direct and indirect effects on the research sites, participants, etc. Reporting style. This refers to the extent the research report author's description is perceived as authentic. Trustworthiness. A study's trustworthiness is increased when data analysis and conclusions are triangulated, subjects' perceptions are verified in a systematic manner, and the project's data chain of evidence is established. Triangulation. The use of multiple data collection devices, sources, analysts, etc. is established to establish the validity of findings. Member checking. Research participants should review findings for accuracy and representativeness. the chain of evidence. The logical relationship between the research questions, the research procedures, raw data and results should be such that a reasonably prudent person would arrive at the same or a similar conclusion. Qualitative reliability and generalizability. Where possible, it is wise to use multiple observers and run inter-rater reliability coefficients if standard rating forms were used. Established fully developed procedures for resolving disagreements among raters. The qualitative researcher does not share the same level of concern for generalizability as does the quantitative researcher. Let's move on to the topic qualitative research design. Qualitative research designs a research method which is used extensively by scientists and researchers studying human behavior and habits. It is also very useful for product designers who want to make a product that will sell. Qualitative methods are probably the oldest of all scientific techniques, with ancient Greek philosophers qualitatively observing the world around them and trying to come up with answers which explained what they saw. Design. The design of qualitative research is probably the most flexible of the various experimental techniques, encompassing a variety of accepted methods and structures. The advantages. These types of designs are much easier to plan and carry out. They are also useful when budgetary decisions have to be taken into account. Disadvantages. Whilst not as time or resource consuming as quantitative experiments, qualitative methods still require a lot of careful thought and planning to ensure that the results obtained are as accurate as possible. Qualitative data cannot be mathematically analyzed in the same comprehensive way as quantitative results, so it can only give you a guide to general trends. We shall now discuss the importance of research. Extensive literature survey. Once a problem is formulated, a brief summary of it should be written down. It is compulsory for a research worker writing a thesis for a PhD degree to write a synopsis of the topic and submit it. Development of working hypothesis. Working hypothesis is tentative assumption made in order to draw out and test its logical or empirical consequences. Determining sample design. All the items under consideration in any field of inquiry constitute a universe or population. Collecting the data. In dealing with any real-life problem, it is often found that data at hand are inadequate, and hence it becomes necessary to collect data that are appropriate. Execution of the project. If the execution of the project proceeds on correct lines, the data to be collected would be adequate and dependable. Analysis of data. After the data has been collected, the researcher turns to the task of analyzing them. The analysis of data requires a number of closely related operations, such as establishment of categories, the application of these categories to raw data through coding, tabulation, and then drawing statistical inferences. Hypothesis testing. After analyzing the data as stated, the researcher is in a position to test the hypothesis, if any, he had formulated earlier. Do the facts support the hypothesis, or they happen to be contrary? This is the usual question which should be answered while testing hypothesis. Generalizations and interpretation. If a hypothesis is tested and upheld several times, it may be possible for the researcher to arrive at generalization, that is, to build a theory. As a matter of fact, the real value of research lies in its ability to arrive at certain generalizations. Preparation of the report or the thesis. Finally, the researcher has to prepare the report of what has been done by him. Writing of report must be done with great care, keeping in view the following. The layout of the report should be as follows. The preliminary pages, the main text and the end matter. Report should be written in a concise and objective style in simple language, avoiding vague expressions such as it seems, there may be, and the likes. Charts and illustrations in the main report should be used only if they present the information more clearly and forcibly. Calculated confidence limits must be mentioned, and the various constraints experienced in conducting the research operations may as well be stated. Now in the end, let us summarize what we have learned in this lecture. Research design in general terms can be referred to as a scheme of work to be done or performed by a researcher during the various stages of a research project. The cross-sectional study is aimed at taking a one-time stock of the situation or the phenomenon in which the decision maker is interested. The research design is a comprehensive master plan of the research study to be undertaken, giving a general statement of the methods to be used. The aim of the experimental research is to investigate the possible cause and effect relationship by manipulating one independent variable to influence the other variables in the experimental group, and by controlling the other relevant variables and measuring the effects of the manipulation by some statistical means.